guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Pete. This is where we talk about money, finances, where we give you information, education, help you make the best financial and investment decisions possible. So today I want to talk about a topic that requires your big boy pants and your big girl pants. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'm going to be really, really honest with you because I feel that it's a really important topic to be talking about early. Now, when I look at my demographics here on this channel, I know that I have a 15-year-old watching me. I know that I've got quite a few people between the ages of 24 and 34, and I have a few people that are closer to my age in their 40s who are also watching. I actually know that I've got someone in their 60s also watching. And this is a topic that I feel is going to resonate with everybody across the board. And even if at the end of this video, I simply plant a seed in your head that germinates and grows and makes you take action, then I will consider that my job is done. This is a conversation that I wish that someone had with me when I was in my 20s. I watched my dad panic about this in his late 50s, and he pretty much died worried that he wasn't going to have enough money to retire on. This didn't click for me until I literally started working in pensions, and I understood, well, that's what my dad was worried about. And again, if you listen to my podcast and you listen to me on IG and you listen to some of my lives on IG, you will know that I feel really, really strongly about the fact that we do not get taught this in school. And that is a fundamental mistake that sets us up for failure in life in general. And particularly when it comes to this topic here. Early retirement is something that is sold to us as this utopic kind of outcome that we all need to thrive towards. But an idea is great. A dream is great. A dream and an idea is nothing if we do nothing to make it a reality. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the key considerations to retiring early, the things that you have to be doing. You absolutely have to be doing right now. And particularly if you're young, with all things invested, time is your friend. If you are in your 20s, if you're in your 30s even, time is your friend. You have enough time to make this happen with the right actions. If you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s and you have nothing right now. I spoke at an event 3 weeks ago, and in the breakout area, there was a lady. She was saying, I really need to be thinking about retirement. I've got nothing, but I'm now 52. She was 52. I've got nothing. I don't know where to begin. I think it's too late. And I said, look, it's not too late, but you have to do the right things right now. Time is of the essence. So again, look, if at the end of this video, this plants a seed that grows and pushes you to take action, my job here would be done. But with that being said, you do need your big boy pants, your big girl pants, because we're talking big boy stuff and big girl stuff here. If you're not listening to the podcast, there it is right there. We've actually got Stake on the podcast this week. Really, really great company. They're similar to Trading 212. They are offering free shares at the moment. I've got a link in the description below. You can get a free share of either Nike, GoPro, or Dropbox. The only caveat is you have to fund your account 24 hours after you open it. Otherwise, you don't get your free share. I've had some people who've used the link and not got the free share because they didn't fund the account within 24 hours. The minimum to fund the account is £50. So if you want a free share of either Nike, GoPro, or Dropbox, use the link below to get a free share. But guys, let's go. So I have a question for you, because when you talk about early retirement, you see the images of, being on a beach or, traveling the world. And for me, it's not about those images. Those images are aspirational, right? They're there to help you take action. And one thing that I found creating videos and doing my podcast is that it's very, very easy to get people excited about making a change, excited about doing something. But doing something is the next step. And getting people to take action, to do something, is often the hardest thing, particularly if you're not telling them what they need to do or what they should be doing. And that's what I want to establish here in this video. So I have an overarching question. It's a rhetorical question. When I ask this, take a minute or so just to think about this and really, really think about this. What does early retirement mean to you? Because early retirement will mean different things to different people. Some people it will be, I want to finish work at age 50, for example, and I want to do absolutely nothing. I want to spend my time with family. I want to spend my time traveling the world. For some people, it may be, well, I want to retire from my career or my profession. I want to do what I want to do. I want to work for a charity because that's what I'm passionate about. I want to do something that I'm passionate about. That could be early retirement for some people. For some others, it might be, well, I want to retire and I want to work 2 days a week and have five days off because that's how they feel they're going to get balance. Now, in this video that I posted about 3 weeks ago, I talked about the FIRE movement and my views on it based on my experience. And the comment section there was full of debate, which is right, because debate is important. Debate is where nuance and context is really nurtured and comes to life. Having one side of an argument doesn't necessarily give you the full picture. But I have very, very strong views about the FIRE movement in the fact that the ideas are perfectly fine. However, the strategic planning that is required for you to make this a reality is often missed. And when I say strategic planning, it is the understanding of what it means to you and some of the key considerations that we're going to go on to in a moment. So what are those considerations? So the first consideration is, well, how much do you actually need? When you retire early, what amount of money do you need every year to service your lifestyle? Now, this can be a really difficult question to answer because essentially you're trying to look into the future 10, 15, 30, 40 years, maybe even, and you're trying to guess what your expenses are going to be because this is heavily going to be dictated by your expenses. So the way I used to explain this with clients is if you try and cast your mind forward and you think about, are you renting? Do you have a mortgage? If you have a mortgage, is it paid off? If you do have a mortgage, do you only have a small amount left over where it's manageable, where it might be £200, £100 a month, where it's not a huge burden? What kind of things do you want to be doing? Do you want to go on holiday 2-3 times a year? What kind of car do you want to be driving? What is that going to actually cost you? Do you want to be going out for meals and enjoying takeaways? All of these things are very, very important because when you tally all of those things up or an estimate of what you think those things are going to cost, you are going to arrive at a number. And that number is the important element that we need to ascertain in terms of how much you're going to need. From that point onwards, it leads to consideration number 2. Which is, how long are you going to live for? If you retire age 50, so again, in this video right here, I openly searched what my life expectancy is. If I retired at age 50, my life expectancy right now is 85, which means I would have 35 years in retirement, potentially. Now, that essentially means is that I would need to have a pot of money large enough to give me X amount in income every single year and also last me for 35 years potentially. Now, professionally, as financial advisors, I know financial advisors now who are planning their retirement income and stretching their life expectancy to 100. And for many of you who are watching this who may be in your 20s, I implore you, I will leave the link in the description. Go and find out what your life expectancy is, but you'll be surprised that some of you will be 90s, late 90s. They're saying that, that people are going to be living up to 100. The younger generation, if you're about 15 or so, you'll be living up to 100. So these are important equations that you need to bear in mind. Important equations that come into this whole picture of how are you going to retire early. These are key considerations. So in terms of your life expectancy and how much money you actually need, there's a very, very simple formula that you can use here. So for example, if your number was, well, I think I'm going to need something like £2,000 per month, for example. That's £24,000 per year. There is something we use in the industry called a safe withdrawal rate, which is how much money do you need your investment to generate and how much can you withdraw from your investment or your pension in order to give you the income you require. That number is around about 4% widely across the industry. Now, that is contended at times where markets are quite volatile, especially from a global point of view, especially now with COVID and what's been going on. Some people even argue that it's as low as 3%. But a simple Simple calculation for that is 24,000 divided by 4%. That will get you to about £600,000. So that gives you your lump sum amount. It doesn't answer the question of whether that £600,000 is going to last you for 35 years if you retire at 50. Unlike me, my life expectancy or your life expectancy is 85 years old. That in itself requires some strategic planning around investment returns, how you invest the money, diversification. And again, if you watch my videos when I talk about investing, the whole point of investing is to ensure that you manage risk, you diversify, to ensure that essentially you stack the odds in your favor so that you have more chance of success than failure. Literally, this is where you get into forecasting and really taking into consideration, well, what happens if the markets were to perform at this or the markets were to crash? Those things are really, really important in that equation. Now that you know exactly what that number is, how are you going to bridge that gap? So you need £600,000, for example. You're 20, 25, 30. How are you going to bridge the gap between whatever you've got in your pensions or your investments right now to £600,000? This is going to take careful thought and careful planning. This is where you're going to need to have a proper strategic plan. And oftentimes, look, I speak at events all the time. And oftentimes when we go through this, even as a financial advisor, you sit down and you go through the numbers and they can be really, really staggering. And this is why my slogan is because money is a tool. It's all about using money that you're earning right now and from here on out as a tool to make early retirement a reality, to make that dream, that idea of utopia a reality. It's a tough thing to do, but it's something that is really, really important. And again, if at the end of this video, I've simply planted a seed that gets you to think about this, then my job is basically done. And again, this is a conversation that I wish that I had had with somebody when I was much, much younger. Let's talk about the things that maybe you should be doing, you should be considering right now. If you're working in a business as an employee, then it is a no-brainer for you to be paying into your workplace pension scheme right now. And, this is one of my frustrations. I think for the last 20 to 30 years, there has been a failure, and this failure is still ongoing right now, not just at the education level, but at the level of we get into the workplace and we are not ever sat down and had, or I certainly haven't had, and many of you who are watching this may be able to relate to what I'm about to say, have never had the workplace pension scheme properly explained to you. Have you? I mean, have you had someone sit down and talk to you about the workplace pension scheme and say, right, this is what it does, this is how it works, this is what it's going to do for you? I had a message from someone 3 weeks ago on IG. His employer gave him the option to move from an old pension scheme into a new pension scheme. Didn't get a talk, didn't get explained to what the old pension scheme was or what the new one was and the difference between the two, whether there was any disadvantages or advantages from moving from one to another. He moved to the new one, not knowing that his old one has certain advantages that give him guarantees when he retires, a guaranteed income when he retires. This is gold dust now. It was never explained to him. He never had a conversation with anybody. The employer didn't do what they needed to do from a duty of care point of view to ensure that he made the best decision for him. And as a result, he's now lost thousands and thousands of pounds potentially because of that decision, because of that neglect. So your workplace pension scheme is an absolute must. If you're working for a business as an employee, they have to contribute into a pension for you. So this is the rule. Your employer has to pay in 3% of your annual wage per year. You have to pay in 5%. So that's an 8% contribution of your annual wage into a workplace pension scheme. Now, some employers will have the ability or the option for you to match. They will call it a matching scheme, where essentially they will say to you, if you up your contribution from the minimum 5% to say 10%, then we will match you at 10% as well. So essentially, opposed to having 8% being paid in, you're going to have 20% paid in. That is a huge amount of money. And depending on what your basic is, obviously, but invested in your workplace pension scheme over 20, 30, 40 years will make a huge difference compared to if you just stayed at 8%. So if you really want to retire early, or you have a dream of retiring early, this is a crucial element to what you need to be doing right now to make that a reality. And it's easy for you to do. You simply need to pick up the phone to your HR department tomorrow and ask who is administering the workplace pension scheme. And you need to have a conversation with them and make sure that you get the understanding of how it works, what contributions they're making, what contributions you're making. It will be 8% at least, whether they have a matching scheme, and how, if you're not already paying into that scheme, how you can start paying into that scheme. Another thing that is worthwhile bearing in mind if you are working for an employer and you are in your workplace scheme is that a lot of the time these workplace schemes will put you into a default fund. And a default fund is essentially just a run-of-the-mill fund that oftentimes doesn't perform well at all. So if you are in your workplace scheme, you need to find out whether you're in the default fund, and you need to get sight of all the other options you have. Again, if you're in your 20s, 30s, or even your 40s, then you have enough time to go into a riskier option so that your money is working as hard as possible for you. So if you're working for an employer, make sure you are not in a default fund unless you're about to retire in the next 5 years or so. But if you have time, you probably want to think about getting it into a higher risk fund so your money is working as hard as possible. The second thing that you can consider is personal pensions, or maybe something like a SIP, which is a self-invested personal pension. Now, this will work well if you're self-employed or you're a director of your own company. If you are employed within a business, this may not necessarily work for you, purely because if you do have a matching scheme where if you pay in more money, your employer is going to pay in more money, you paying money into a separate pension plan means that you're leaving money on the table. So again, make sure that you know the ins and outs of what your workplace scheme is all about before you start looking at opening a separate personal pension or a self-invested personal pension. However, if you do run your own business, you are a director of a company or you're self-employed, a personal pension or a self-invested personal pension, a SIP, maybe is something that you really should be looking at, because you need to be making provisions for yourself. Oftentimes, business owners get caught up in running the business, making sure that the business stays alive. And yes, look, especially now with COVID, it's extremely hard. It's probably one of the things that is not even the forefront of, not even the backs of your mind. It's not even there at all. You're thinking about simply surviving. But this is a really important thing. I have seen clients who have spent years building a business, thinking that they're going to sell their business, but something went wrong. They didn't sell their business and they have absolutely nothing. So it's really important to be proactive now. You don't want to spend all these years building a business to have nothing, absolutely nothing to show for it. So SIPs, personal pensions, definitely something you should be having a look at. Now, again, if you're working in a business as an employee, if you're going to be looking at the pension or personal pension or a SIP, you need to consider cost. Oftentimes, if you're working within a business and your workplace pension scheme is being operated by a fund manager or an administrator, will be one of these big investment houses, then they are capped on how much they can charge. So, in other words, moving from or paying money into a personal pension or a SIP as an employee in a business can incur additional costs. SIPs can be very, very expensive because they give you more flexibility, which is why it's great for company directors. So if you're a company director where you own the business premises, you can put that into your pension. But for that, you're going to need proper financial advice to make sure that you are doing the right thing and you're doing it in the right manner as well. The last consideration is, look, if like me, you've worked in a number of places for a number of employers in the past, you've probably paid money into a pension with one, two, three, or four of them, for example. If you have paid money into those pensions, it's really important that you get those under your purview so that you can have control over what's going on with them. Oftentimes, people leave employers, they leave addresses. Therefore, the people who are actually administering those pensions don't know where you are, and you end up with pots of money elsewhere that you completely forget about. I've seen it as a financial advisor. I've seen it on a number of occasions where the client was lucky, the performance of the pensions were good, and I've also had situations where the performance was really bad, and they could have done something different had they known that it was an option to them. So if you do have ex-employers where you've been paying into a pension, consider consolidating those into one place. I'll leave a link in the bio to PensionBee. They have a really easy service where essentially all they need is the name of your employer and the time at which you worked for them. And they literally do the remainder of the searching and gathering that information and transferring it over to them. If you do have a really old pension with guaranteed benefits, they will flag that so that you're aware. They'll ask you to go and find a financial advisor, because if you do have a final salary or defined benefit scheme, then you're going to need to get financial advice, essentially. But they will flag all of that for you, and they'll do all that work for you and transfer it into one place. And the beauty is you'll get it on your phone as well. It is a non-advice service, guys, so you have to kind of know what you're doing in terms of the fund selections. They've got 7 funds. But again, they've got really good, clear fund fact sheets that explain what the funds are there to do. They've got videos on them as well. So it's relatively easy to use. I'll leave a link in the bio there. But guys, look, big boy, big girl chat. I hope that's been helpful. Please do let me know in the comments. I watch my dad worry about this kind of stuff. We don't get taught this in school. Employers don't necessarily take much care to ensure that you're aware of these things, because you're adults. You should know about this stuff. You should take responsibility for yourself. But you know what this is like. If you don't know that it's an option, you don't know that it's a thing, you don't know. Ignorance is bliss, as they say. So I hope this has gone some way to help you put some context around the things that you should be doing, you have to be doing right now if you want to retire early. There's a lot more to this. There's a ton more to this. I run workshops where I actually take people through how do you actually come and arrive to that sum of money that you're going to need, how you then arrive at the numbers that you need to be literally paying in now to reach that number. So I think I've got one in December. I will leave a link for people to register. I'd like to normally get about 20 to 30 people on that workshop, so it's manageable. But if you're interested in that kind of workshop, then definitely click the link below and register your interest. And in December, I will send you out an invite to it. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you on Friday.